Emerging from the ashes of World War II, France embarked on a resolute mission to revamp its aerospace industry. In this context, the Griffon was conceived as an aircraft that would push the boundaries of technology and design. Born during the intense aerospace rivalry of the Cold War era and the urgent need to counter the Soviet threat, the Griffon was meant to reach Mach 2 and beyond. Its journey from wooden glider prototypes to the achievement of supersonic speeds, powered by a unique dual propulsion system, unveils a tale of ambitions and setbacks. The Griffon would go on to fly at soaring heights, breaking records in its wake. Indeed, it was the fastest aircraft in the world. Have you ever wondered what it feels like to break the sound barrier in a jet like the groundbreaking Nord 1500 Griffon? Your chance to step into the history books awaits with War Thunder, the most comprehensive vehicle combat game ever made. In War Thunder, you do more than just pilot the most iconic combat vehicles of modern warfare. You can also customize them and paint the battlefield in your own style by using a wide array of camouflage, historical insignias, and 3D decorations. As history enthusiasts, we're thrilled by War Thunder's blend of high-octane gameplay and authentic historical detail. Each aircraft, tank, and helicopter, from the rivets to the engine, is recreated with stunning accuracy, and the game's next-gen graphics and 4K resolution immerse you right into the heart of history's most electrifying aerial and ground battles. Boasting over 2,000 meticulously modeled tanks, War Thunder's arsenal spans a century of military innovation, from the classic fighters and early tanks of the 1920s to today's advanced combat machines. The game offers an unparalleled journey through the evolution of military technology. But what's history without the chance to rewrite it? Dive into epic battles and steer your personalized machines to victory by clicking the link in the description below and joining the War Thunder community for free on PC, PlayStation, or Xbox. What's more, new players, or those that haven't played for at least 6 months, can claim a large free bonus pack that includes multiple premium vehicles, a premium account, an exclusive 3D decorator for your vehicles, and much more. In the post-World War II era, the Soviets emerged as the new adversary to the Western world. Within this geopolitical landscape, the Soviets focused on the development of increasingly advanced bombers and attack aircraft. In turn, Western nations embarked on costly and high-profile initiatives to create effective countermeasures against the perceived Eastern threat. France, having endured significant hardships during World War II, placed a strong emphasis on rebuilding its aerospace industry during the Cold War period. Numerous projects were initiated in France as it sought to bolster its capabilities and contribute to the Western defense effort. For one, the origins of the Griffon can be traced back to a French government-sponsored investigation into innovative swept and delta-wing aircraft designs. In the 1950s, the French Air Ministry called for entries in response to a pressing need for high-performance interceptor aircraft capable of reaching Mach 2 speeds and exceeding in both aerial combat and rough field operations. To achieve this, the aircraft necessitated substantial power to ensure exceptional rates of climb and straight-line speed, providing the French Air Force with the necessary tools for rapid response. In its initial iteration, it took the form of a wooden glider, a unique creation. The mastermind behind these models was the Société Française d'Études et de Construction des Matériels Aéronautiques Spéciaux, or SFECMAS for short, entrusted with the construction of these unusual gliders and conducting the associated tests. In the early stages of the project, the manufacturer used the Model 1301 and 2301 gliders to validate various aspects of the Griffon program, including the delta wing configuration. During this phase, the Griffon was also referred to as the Guépard, French for cheetah. To provide data for the studies, the model could be fitted with both delta and swept wings, and with or without canards. The craft was towed aloft behind a more conventional tug aircraft to the release point, an SNCAC Martinet, Douglas DC-3, or SNK Legados transport aircraft, and then released into the skies. This curious experiment, however, yielded a treasure trove of invaluable data for the French Air Ministry. As the results of these trials began to emerge, Jean Gaultier, the chief designer, contemplated a range of potential directions. Among the intriguing possibilities was a concept propelled by 2 ramjet engines. Another avenue of exploration led to the development of the Griffon series. Yet it was the third path that would ultimately give birth to the Griffon. The ambitiously equipped twin-engine design never ventured beyond the drawing board, its potential left unrealized. Meanwhile, the Griffon persevered in its development and testing, undeterred by the failures of other models. A direct descendant of the earlier Griffon, or Gyrfalcon, The Griffon was destined to be its Mach 2 successor. In August 1953, a pair of prototypes were commissioned to bridge the gap between conceptualization and full-scale production, coinciding with the merger of Svekmus with another firm, giving rise to Nord Aviation. These aircraft, it should be noted, were conceived solely for rigorous testing and experimentation. They were never destined to be outfitted with military hardware. Leveraging their experience with the Griffon 1400, Nord engineers incorporated the proven delta wing configuration into the Griffon design, featuring main wings with a 60-degree sweepback to maintain control at high speeds. In September 1955, the Griffon 1 took its inaugural flight, beginning a journey of setbacks and triumphs. However, this initial flight did not paint a promising picture. The test pilot immediately noticed a glaring issue. The aircraft was severely underpowered. To mitigate risks, the initial Griffon, 1500-01 Griffon 1, was equipped solely with the afterburning Snecma Atar 101G21 turbojet engine, and thus achieved a maximum speed of Mach 1.17, falling short of the intended Mach 2 performance. Later in its testing phase, it was re-engined with the Atar E turbojet, boasting 8,400 pounds of thrust. The Atar turbojet engine sat in the lower portion of the fuselage. A straight-through intake-to-exhaust port arrangement maximized airflow into the engine, giving the aircraft a somewhat deep profile. The engine intake was positioned beneath the aircraft's nose, near the cockpit floor, while the exhaust exited through a traditional jet pipe arrangement at the rear of the fuselage under the tail. As time went on, it became evident that the fuel-thirsty Atar engine could benefit from the addition of a ramjet thruster. To unlock the full potential of the Griffon, a rather unconventional power plant was deemed necessary, a turbojet ramjet engine. Ramjets offered substantial thrust, but required a minimum speed to activate. The two engines shared incoming air through the intake opening, with the ramjet featuring its own variable nozzle for airflow control. The final contract was issued in 1955, although intended by Nord to eventually fulfill a requirement for a light interceptor capable of using grass airfields. These two aircraft were ordered without any military equipment installed, being intended for research purposes only. The presence of a jet engine enabled the ability for unassisted takeoffs, while the ramjet engine held the promise of blistering performance once the aircraft was airborne, hurtling through the skies at a staggering 1,000 kilometers per hour. However, it's vital to understand the mechanics of ramjets. These engines, despite their remarkable abilities, are inherently incapable of generating thrust at zero airspeed, rendering them ineffective for propelling an aircraft from a standstill. Indeed, the Griffon's unique dual propulsion system would truly set it apart: a turbojet for takeoff and a ramjet that ignited at supersonic speeds. This unconventional arrangement allowed it to achieve astonishing velocities, unseen at this point. Despite its inauspicious start, testing continued. 4 months later, in the chilly days of January 1956, the Griffon managed to break through the sound barrier, reaching Mach 1.15. It was a modest achievement, but it signaled progress. Then, in June of that year, misfortune struck. Given the French Air Force's requirement for rough field operations, the first prototype intentionally conducted a grass runway test on June 19th, which resulted in a collapsed nose wheel. After repairs, it returned to flight in late July. This prototype continued to fly without ever receiving its intended ramjet engine. During its time in the air, the Griffon 1 exhibited good control and handling characteristics. However, amidst these trials and tribulations, a silver lining emerged. During its various test flights, the Griffon 1 exhibited remarkable handling performance, hinting at its untapped potential. But fate had other plans. In the blink of an eye, less than 2 years from its first flight, the Griffon 1 was quietly retired from service in April 1957, leaving behind a mixed legacy of challenges and commendable handling. Following its predecessor's footsteps, the Griffon 2, sporting a few noticeable differences from the original prototype, including an elongated fuselage and a wider intake, made its debut, now featuring the long-awaited ramjet. The Griffon 2 was the only other prototype in the Griffon test program. It was powered by the Atar 101 F-Series afterburning turbojet engine, providing 7,735 pounds of thrust, with exhaust routed through a larger diameter port under the tail fin. An early computer system was introduced to regulate fuel flow to the ramjet unit. The first flight of this Griffon variant occurred on January 23, 1957. By December of that year, it achieved a speed of Mach 1.85, edging closer to the required Mach 2 speed envelope. the first round of supersonic testing commenced. Yet, much like the Griffon 1, the Griffon 2 struggled to impress, barely managing to breach Mach 1.3. The culprit, once again, was the ramjet, which struggled to gulp down enough air to fuel the aircraft's performance. In response, Nord Aviation made an important adjustment, increasing the air intake capacity. This modification made all the difference, catapulting the aircraft's speed to impressive heights. It soared to Mach 1.85, and in a crowning achievement, it set a speed record, hurtling through the skies at a staggering 2,320 kilometers per hour. In stark contrast, the Griffon 1 could muster only Mach 1.3, or 1,605 kilometers per hour. In October 1958, the Griffon 2 finally reached Mach 2. The somewhat unconventional appearance of the Griffon was born out of an unwavering quest for speed. Its distinctive features included a prominent intake positioned beneath the cockpit, a layout reminiscent of the iconic F-16. The stout tubular fuselage proudly bore the same delta wing that graced the Griffon, accompanied by the swept vertical stabilizer adorned with a rudder. Completing the picture was a tricycle undercarriage that smoothly retracted into the wings and the underside of the air intake. The cockpit was located at the nose of the aircraft, set behind a streamlined nose cone ready to accommodate military-grade radar in the future. Designed for a single pilot, the cockpit provided excellent forward and side visibility, was fully pressurized, and included an ejection seat. Small canards fixed near the nose enhanced maneuverability by stabilizing the aircraft's nose at high speeds. This feature exists in many European fighters today, although they have a high range of motion to increase efficiency. Notably, the aircraft featured a single swept-back vertical tail fin at the rear. In the design, Gautier adhered to his principles, as seen in the Griffon. An unbroken air duct ensured the air entering the engines flowed as undisturbed as possible. The Griffon did indeed live up to its promise in many respects. Its second prototype, the Griffon 2, shattered records on October 5, 1959, when test pilot André Turcot pushed it to an astounding Mach 2.19, marking a world record for a closed-circuit course. It was then that the Griffon 2 found its place in aviation history. Likewise, the man in command during Griffon 2's record-breaking flight would continue to make history by becoming the first to pilot the Concorde 15 years later. Yet, amidst its glory, the Griffon was not without its flaws. Its airframe proved sensitive to high temperatures due to the limited temperature-resistant materials within its duralumin alloy skin. The ramjet, too, exhibited issues of mid-range speeds, with its exhaust temperature often wreaking havoc on the tailpipe. But the most critical blow came from the balance sheet. The Dassault Mirage 3 emerged as a simpler and more cost-effective option, offering performance on par with the Griffon. Nord had also explored a Mach 3-capable Griffon, referred to as the Griffon 3 or Super Griffon, powered by the Super État engine with 19,850 pounds of thrust, but it remained a study only. Interest in the Mach 2-capable Griffon waned, leading to a decline in project funding. In the face of these realities, Griffon 2 embarked on her final flight on June 5, 1961. The program officially concluded as all parties involved moved in different directions. The Griffon prototypes conducted a total of 337 flights, contributing to the advancement of high-speed flight concepts for future designs. The second prototype is preserved at the Musée de l'Air et de l'Espace at Le Bourget Airport near Paris. Are you ready to take control of some of the most iconic combat vehicles ever built? Join us on this thrilling journey by clicking the link in the description below and unlocking an exclusive bonus pack just for new players. See you in War Thunder.